Hi, everyone. So we're going to start here in chapter 2, all about signal signs and pavement markings. So this chapter is going to provide the information that you need to know about Pennsylvania roadways. That was all about that pre-test that we took. It's going to cover signals, signs, and pavement markings. Some of them may be familiar to you and some of them may not. This is a lot of the stuff that you're going to need to know for the written test, for the knowledge test, as it's called in Pennsylvania. So, signals. Traffic signals are installed at intersections to control the movement of vehicles and pedestrians. Traffic signals are arranged in either vertical lines or horizontal lines. So, vertical up and down or horizontal going across. When they are arranged vertically, the red light is always on top and the green is always on the bottom. When they are arranged horizontally, red is always on the left and green is always on the right. So let's go through the red, yellow, and green traffic lights and arrows. So you may think you know this, but please pay attention. So when there is a red light, so here's our red light. When there's a steady red light, you must stop before crossing the marked stop line or crosswalk. If you do not see any lines, stop before the intersection. Wait for a green light before you start. You may turn right while the light is red unless a no turn on red sign is posted at the intersection. You must first stop, check for, and yield to pedestrians and other traffic. You may also turn left after you stop at a red light if you are in the left lane and are turning left from a one-way street onto another one-way street, unless a sign tells you not to turn. You must first stop and yield to pedestrians and other traffic. Whoops. Uh-oh. All right. So here's our yellow light. A steady yellow light tells you a steady red light will soon appear. If you are driving towards an intersection and a yellow light appears, slow down and prepare to stop. If you are within the intersection or cannot stop safely before the intersection, continue through carefully. Green light. A steady green light means you may drive through the intersection if the road is clear. You may also turn right or left unless a sign tells you not to. However, when turning, you must yield, stop to other vehicles and pedestrians within the intersection. So let's look at our arrows. A steady red arrow means you must stop and you may turn in the direction the arrow points. Wait for a green arrow or a flashing yellow arrow before you start. The same turns on red that are allowed for a steady red signal are allowed for a steady red arrow. The yellow arrow. A steady yellow arrow means the movement permitted by the green arrow or the flashing yellow arrow is about to end and the signal will soon turn red. You should slow down and prepare to stop completely before entering the intersection. If you are within the intersection or cannot stop safely before entering the intersection, you may complete the turn begun on the preceding arrow with caution. The green arrow. A steady green arrow means you may turn the way the arrow points. When you turn during the green arrow phase, your turn is protected because oncoming traffic is stopped by a red light. If the green arrow turns into a green light, you may still turn in that direction. But first, yield to pedestrians and oncoming traffic. A flashing red light has the same meaning as a stop sign. You must come to a complete stop, Then look both ways and proceed only after the intersection is clear. A flashing yellow light means caution. Slow down and look and proceed with care. A flashing yellow arrow means you may turn in the direction of the arrow with caution. However, you must first yield to oncoming traffic and pedestrians. When you turn during the flashing yellow arrow phase, your turn is not protected. Oncoming traffic will have a green light. So you're aware, if a non-functioning traffic light, which means if a traffic light is not working, it should be treated as though it was a four-way stop sign. We'll go over four-way stop signs soon. So ramp metering and lane use control signals. Some highway entrance ramps have traffic signals at the end of the ramp that alternates between steady green and steady red. Ramp metering signals are used to control the flow of traffic onto very congested highways and usually operate during peak rush hours. You must wait for the green signal before you enter the highway. On single lane ramps, only one car may enter the highway each time the light turns green. For multi-lane on ramps, there will be a ramp meter for each lane. The green light does not always protect your entrance. It does not protect your entrance onto the highway. You still have to look for a safe gap in the traffic to enter the highway. Again, a green light on highway entrance ramps do not protect your entrance onto the highway. You must still look for a safe gap in traffic to the highways. So let's look at these lane use control signals. Special signals may also be placed directly over lanes to control traffic. These are commonly used at toll booths, on bridges, tunnels, and on multi-lane roads in cities where the direction of travel for a particular lane changes to ease the flow of traffic into or out of the city during peak rush hour. The following signals show how specific lanes of a street or a highway should be used. So let's look at this one. A steady downward green arrow over a traffic lane means you may use the lane. A steady yellow X over a traffic lane means you must change lanes because the direction of travel for that lane is about to be reversed. Get ready to leave the lane safely. A steady red X over a lane means you're not allowed to use the traffic lane. A white steady one-way left turn arrow over a lane means you may only turn left if you are in that lane. A white steady two-way left turn arrow over a lane means you may only turn left if you are in that lane. But the lane is shared by left-turning drivers approaching from the opposite direction. Now let's look at pedestrian signals, school zone, and railroad signs. Pedestrians, those who walk, must obey traffic and pedestrian signals. The pedestrian signals you must obey are the walk and don't walk lights, or the lighted picture of a walking person, meaning walk, and an upraised hand, meaning don't walk. If there are no pedestrian signals at the intersection, pedestrians must obey the red, yellow, and green traffic lights. So if you don't see any of these signs, you have to follow the traffic light signals. Sometimes pedestrians are not always aware of the responsibility at traffic and pedestrian signals. As a driver, be alert for pedestrians who may not obey the signal. Always yield, which means stop, to pedestrians. So let's look at the white one. When a steady walk or walking person comes on, start crossing, but be alert for turning vehicles that may not lawfully yield to the right of way. When the flashing don't walk or flashing upraised hand begins, first finish crossing if you are in the street. But if you are not in the street, do not start to cross if you have not left the curb. When the steady don't walk message or steady upraised hand is displayed, do not cross. So, as a driver, blind pedestrians, when driving near a blind pedestrian who is carrying a white cane or walking with a guide dog, you must slow down and always yield the right of way and then proceed with caution. Be prepared to stop your vehicle in order to prevent injury or danger to the pedestrian. School zones. These are really important to follow. School zone signals are a flashing yellow sign placed on the school zone speed limit signs. You must travel no faster than 15 miles per hour. No faster than 15 miles per hour when the yellow signals are flashing or during the time periods indicated on the sign. Exceeding the speed limit. If you go over the speed limit in a school zone, it will result in 3 points on your driving record and you'll also be fined. This is super dangerous on your driving record. It can raise your rates. It can, if you get too many points, your license can be suspended. We'll talk about points later on. So let's look at the railroad crossing signals. Drivers are alerted when approaching a railroad crossing by the railroad crossing sign. Railroad crossings should be approached with caution at all times. You should always look both ways and listen for any approaching trains or signals before proceeding across the railroad tracks. You are required to stop at all railroad crossings when there is a signal of an approaching train. These signals include flashing red lights, a lowered crossing gate, a flagger signaling, or a train's audible signal of warning. Do not move forward or attempt to go around any gate or ignore any signal of an approaching train. If there are no signals at the railroad crossing, you should slow down and prepare to stop if you see or hear a train. Proceed with caution only after all signals are completed and then only when there's evidence no trains are approaching the crossing. You should stop if a train is approaching and it has sounded an audible signal, or you can plainly see them and you're in hazardous proximity to the crossing. You're never going to win against a railroad. Do not stop your vehicle on a railroad track, regardless of whether or not you see a train coming. If traffic is backed up because of a traffic signal, stop sign, or any other reason, make sure you stop your vehicle in a location where it will be entirely clear of any railroad tracks. We're going to look later on how to safely cross a highway railroad section. We're going to stop here and you're going to answer the questions on the Google form.